It is magic. Hey, and welcome back to another Raw and Real episode with TJ and Jim.
We are here.
We are here, and man alive, it's been a busy week. We've done the other podcast, and we've done the blogs, and we've done other stuff on top of all that. And so we're actually we were recording this on Sunday. We've got a lot going on tomorrow, so we're going to record it today, and so it will drop tomorrow. So tomorrow, today, you're listening. It's today. It's Monday, but
Yeah.
we're actually recording this on Sunday. Um, Getting closer to Braylee's big Halloween party, her annual Halloween party that's been going on for the last 6-7 years, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not huge Halloween people, but she always does a little. She started it with my mom, her Nana.
Yep.
7, 8 years ago.
I think so. I don't remember. I know one year I missed because I was deer hunting.
You missed the first year.
I missed the first year because I was off in Kerrville hunting deer and axes. And I've been to every one ever since.
Yeah. So they just get to have a little get together and decorate, and we eat and have costume contests and just fun stuff like that. Nothing crazy.
We don't dive off into the whole celebration of all the demonic stuff that it supports. So
No, but they have fun with it, and it's something that they enjoy doing. So it's always a good time. Just a reason to get together, I think.
yeah, and it's just something, we always try to support our kids as long as it's within the boundaries, so to speak, and encourage them and when they try stuff. And we've always been big into that. So
Yeah.
And hopefully you're noticing a difference because we had some sound problems. I don't know. We've got some connection problems with one of our adapters and the mics and all that. So we're trying this. I did it with mine Friday without the mic. So I'm hoping everything is coming in clear. That the readings we're getting on this is a lot better. So we'll see. I hope. If not, I may be having to re-record it.
And that's okay too. We'll do it.
And no, we're not drinking any alcoholic beverage, in case. I know that's the thing. I don't want to get anything started on YouTube that we're drinking and preaching, so.
You don't know. Mind your business.
Actually, what started all this, we were, the kids just left. They went back home with your mom a while ago. We had a great little Sunday lunch that we got up and cooked this morning, had a good time visiting, and we ran to go to the store a while ago, and we were coming back. We just were having a heart-to-heart, and I was like, that's what we need to talk about. That's what we need to discuss on this one, because it's something that we've been dealing with and going through for a while now. And so I thought, you know what? It's raw, it's real. We're not going to get on here and put on a show like everything's great and wonderful all the time.
Aww.
Yeah, that symbiotic garbage that I think ruins Christianity, and it's been kind of a topic of conversation among other podcasts. I've noticed. I listened to one the other day. I think it was Unashamed, and they were talking about the hypocrites and the hypocrisy that was going on in this specific time in the Bible, and the very thing that Jesus and some of the disciples were dealing with. And so it's something that keeps coming up, so I can't help but think it's not for such a time as this. And so this is not taking anything away from those guys or stealing any content, but this is our version, our own way. Jennifer didn't even hear it, so she didn't even know what I'm talking about. But
No, I haven't listened to a podcast in a while. I go in spells.
But, the topic came up about, what we're talking about is, I don't think we understand the importance. You said, I don't think people understand the importance of rest.
I think rest is so devalued. We think if we're resting, we're being lazy.
Okay.
Or that's how I've always felt. Like, oh my gosh, if you're laying down just to rest your mind, or you want to watch a show or watch football today or whatever, like, you're just being lazy. Like, there's stuff to do all the time. I don't think people truly realize the importance of rest. And I'm not just talking about sleeping, napping, rest. I'm talking about stopping, letting the world around you stop, and just saying, time out. I need a break. We're either on social scrolling, we're on Facebook scrolling, we're on Instagram scrolling, and your mind's constantly racing. And I don't think you have that. You're praying all these prayers and you're like,
it's good.
Not hearing anything, but have you stopped to rest, take away from the distractions to hear him?
So you're kind of basically describing it as you can't see the forest because the trees are in the way, kind of thing. You're talking to God, you're praying, you're not hearing anything, you're frustrated, you're exhausted, you're just weary, and I mean you're on what you feel like is your last leg.
Yeah. And no, you're like, and I know I've said it to people, and so I apologize right now if I've ever said this to you, but they're like, he doesn't change, rest in him, don't grow weary. Okay, but how? I'm not hearing him. I am praying for so many specific things. I am praying for people for specific areas of their life. I'm praying for specifics in my life. I'm praying for specifics in my kids. And I am not hearing anything. And some of it is like, what is my next step? Like
exactly.
You're stagnant. And so you're like, okay, I'm doing the last thing you told me to do, but what's next? And you're not hearing that, and you're just like frustrated, and you feel abandoned, and you feel like you got this black cloud hanging over your head and that you're cursed. And so then you go into breaking all these curses off of you. And so it's just like your mind, it's like Satan. If Satan can't take you down, he'll make you busy.
You've always said that. And
he makes you so busy that I finally looked up. Well, honestly, it was earlier today. We were talking about it. We were like, there's a lot coming up this week that we have to do and get done. And I'm like, no wonder I'm not hearing him. I have not stopped, tuned out social, tuned out the TV, tuned out the radio even, tuned out my family in a sense. I mean, there's always a kid.
It's always something going on around here.
I haven't stopped long enough to hear him.
Right.
I don't think he's the problem. It's me.
Well, I mean, it's very true. And I didn't really think a lot about it until you said that a while ago. Because I had ran out to the ranch to check on things this morning. And, I was really having that kind of a time with him. And I was in a struggle. I really was. I'm like, I just don't get it. All these things aren't lining up. All these things aren't adding up. Where am I missing it? What's wrong? What's not going correctly for things to be where they're supposed to be? Right. And so I was pushing through that, struggling through that, and then you said that a while ago, and I'm like, that's it. We're so busy. Like you and I, since we dove off into the full-time, quote-unquote, ministry, we have been just nose to the grindstone, nonstop, 6 to 7 days a week almost. Not really a day, because, we record the podcast on Mondays and Thursdays, and most days they drop on those days. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, your blog and my blog go up. Friday is when I kicked in the Quint T Outdoor podcast. It was the only true, free day I knew I could do that. Saturday, it never fails. We've got something going on, it seems like. And then here lately, we've been, guest speaking at other churches on Sundays. And so, it's just been go. And I told you the other day, I was like, I need a day. I need a day to go do something else. Something human is what I wanted to say, And so, it's been a struggle. It's been a hard struggle for me here lately, because we have been so busy, and I'm grateful. I wouldn't take it back. I love working for the Lord. It's not that at all, but I think a guy described it on a reel we were watching in bed the other night when he was talking about he had a big like glass vase and filled it full of water and dumping it out and we get it down to about 3/4 empty, and then we still continue to try to give from that. Yeah. And I think that's where we get to in our walk. You know, we get to that point where we get filled up, and then we start giving it out, and then we don't ever, get it filled back up again. Yeah. So we seem empty all the time, and we're trying our guts out. And I think a lot of that has to do with we're not taking the time to stop, rest, hear from Him to get that motivation to keep going.
Well, and I'm really guilty about getting busy with something and then kind of losing sight of the original plan God had me on.
Okay.
I'll get so busy, I'm like, oh, this is a great idea, and I just keep adding stuff on to that one task that I forget that this is all He told me to do.
The extra stuff you added in.
And so this extra stuff I've added in, and yet I'm expecting Him to fund it, so to speak, or, make it happen, and that's not at all what He told me to do. I got one word, and I ran with it, and I went ahead of Him on it, so I kind of have to back myself up a lot of times. And I think that's where I'm at now. Like, I got really ahead of Him on some things, and now I'm having to, back up and be like, well, what's the last thing He told you? What's the last words that He spoke to you that you know was Him?
Yeah.
Go back there, start fresh.
No, and that's it, and like our old mentor, so to speak, used to always say, go, if you ever hit a brick wall, back up and go to the last thing He told you to do. And forever that was Greek, so to speak, to me. Like, I didn't really get it because I'm like, well, first of all, if it's in any shape, form, or fashion meant to glorify the kingdom, why would He not bless it? Right. Why would He not? I mean, it's like you're going to punish a kid for doing extra credit? Right. Like, that doesn't even make sense in the natural. You got a kid on the football team that's staying late to lift weights or watch game film. Like, you're not going to not start him next week because all you said to do was, go run 100 yards and get a shower. But you come back and 2 hours later, he's in there watching game film. I'm not going to sit him on the bench. Right. So, I mean, I think natural man things interfere with spiritually God things way more than we give it credit for. Yes. Because we know, like when Paul's talking about in Corinthians, when he's writing the church and he says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. So we know there's a spiritual battle. We know there's things of that nature. Right. But what about the problems that we're causing on ourselves and we're biting off more than we can chew, like what you're talking about? We don't, give time for that to be brought into the equation. I think we're missing it and we're getting frustrated and we don't know why it's happening. We're just trying to do everything we can for God, but we're maybe operating out of our element.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm very guilty of being like, okay, this isn't working out the way I think it should.
Yeah.
Or the way God laid it out to me. So I either didn't hear from God or this wasn't really His plan. So then I'll just quit altogether. I'll be like, okay, that's not what you want me to do, that's cool. And that wasn't it. It's just back up, let me have it, and then we'll go again. But it's so extreme with me, like it's either I heard and I know, or if I start to question, I'm like, oh, no. Or blame it on the enemy. Oh, the enemy's just trying to come in and block all this, or the enemy's coming in. So you start rebuking the enemy. Well, it's still happening. And we have the final authority over the enemy.
Right.
Like, it's in Scripture, it's written, we have the final authority. But you're still walking through it, and you're like, God, where are you? When are you going to be bigger than the enemy? It's not the enemy you're fighting, it's you.
You're fighting yourself, and He cannot go against human will. We know that. I mean, it's the very thing it talks about when it deals with salvation. I mean, we have to confess and believe.
Right.
We have to accept the Holy Spirit into us. And, that's so crucial. We are blocking, in a way, we're blocking knowledge. And that's why I love referring back to Hosea 4:6 all the time, because it says, my people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Like I shared a couple of Sundays ago, that can go so many different ways. It plugs into all context if you really want to get into it. Like I shared with them, my people could very well be the ones that are believing in me, the ones that are born again. They're being destroyed for a lack of knowledge. They don't have the full knowledge of what I'm trying to do here.
Yeah.
And for instance, like let's take Jesus. So much of the people were against Jesus because he was operating out of a traditional way that they were used to seeing or believing or worshiping or learning from God. And here you actually have God walking among you.
Yeah.
And they're all out saying that he's, lying and making a mockery out of God. So they want to kill him. Well, then the ones that are following him, they don't want him dead. And he's like, you're missing the boat. I need to give up my spirit. I need to leave this earth and go to the Father, because the one that's coming that I'm going to ask my dad, the Father, to give you is way more powerful than what I'm doing,
Right.
because it's going to be able to operate through you. You're not going to have to come to me anymore. I'm going to be able to operate through you and reach a whole lot more. And so in that same instance, tying all this back in, we just need to stop, rest in God, and know that there is a time to work, there is a time to rest, and there is a time to reap. That is the whole context, in my opinion, about when Jesus is talking in the parable about the ask, seek, and knock. Ask.
Yeah.
There's a time to ask, there's a time to seek him, and there's a time to knock on the door to receive it.
Yeah.
And we've got to take that time.
Right.
So when we come back from the break, I want to get into a couple of scriptures that came to mind when we're talking about this, and we'll kind of get a different perspective on the matter.
Okay.
So stay tuned to Raw and Real with TJ and Jen.
Our house is so quiet.
It's weird. I mean, for
It's
those
kinda
of you
creepy.
continue to follow us on YouTube, I mean, you're probably thinking, hey, there's not a kid running in and out of something going on.
Our
refrigerator. A lot of times we're back here in the office trying to record, and we got one trying to sneak in for a snack or something. And we are back. We were mingling and meshing with the people on our video and some behind the scenes stuff. But as we were talking before, one of the first scriptures that came to mind was Psalms 46:10, and everybody knows it. It says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." And that whole thing is be still and know. Like, there's a lot in that little bit right there to me, because like what you're saying, we're hand to plow, just going at full force all out. And then we're hitting some obstacles, I guess you would say. And so now we're trying to just stop and begin to pray and know that he's going to take care of it.
It's kind of like tripping over your own shoelace.
Basically.
You're like running this race. Well, the people behind you didn't push you. The people in front of you didn't stop. You're just tripping over your shoelace.
Right.
And you're falling flat on the ground, and you're like, why'd y'all push me? And nobody touched you.
Right.
You did that to yourself because you refused to stop. You refused to take his word for what it means and rest in him. Are you resting in him that he's going to take care of you? Are you resting in him when you're praying and you're seeking on something, that He is going to provide that for you, that He is going to do the best thing, that His will
Right.
is going to play out. You know, are you giving that to Him fully, or are you praying and saying the words and then taking it right back up and taking it and being like, okay, well, that didn't happen in the next 5 minutes, so
It's a bust.
it's a bust,
right.
or that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. What's the next thing? And I think I'm probably that's one of my biggest guilts is I'll pray, and I'm like, okay. Nothing.
So
Crickets. All right, that's awesome. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just not busy enough. I'm not reading my Bible enough. I'm not doing this enough. I'm not. You are. You're just not stopping enough. Taking a break from the world. Taking that. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. I mean, start somewhere. Take that break and just. What do they say? Get in your closet.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, you know, I look at it because I'm a simple-minded person, and you know, the Bible talks about so much about harvest time, and the all the parables in there gave reference to like seed time, plant, harvest, that kind of stuff, and all that. So I look at it in the natural form of like around us is a lot of crops.
Mm-hmm.
It's majority farmland. So this year, for example, a lot of drought, didn't have the ability to get cotton up, so we went with some alternative sources. But the fact of the matter is, there's a time when you prepare your ground. There is a time that you're going to come in there and, you know, sow seed into that ground. And then there's the water time, but then there's also times periodically where you have to do something to it. But those guys that farm, you know, I'm sorry, they're not farming every day. They're not in a tractor every day.
Right.
There's time that you just have to leave that seed that's been sown, that's been fertilized, that's been watered. You just have to let it grow.
You've done all you can do.
You've done all you can do. And continuing to run a plow through there is doing nothing but burning diesel. And you could very well destroy the very crop that you're trying to get to come up to harvest, because you won't stop, you won't quit and just let it be.
Yeah.
Philippians says this, Philippians 4, 6, and 7. It says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Now, that is, to me, the very root of what we're talking about here, because it's, you know, being anxious. I think that's the main problem that we have, is we're so anxious. And I'm not just talking about excited. I'm talking about anxious in the negative sense as well.
Yeah.
But it just says, be anxious in nothing or for nothing. So it means, to me, in any shape, form, or fashion, don't be anxious. Let your request be made known. And have that peace of mind that you know that He is God, that He's going to perform it. Like we shared the other day, Numbers 23:19. He said it, He'll perform it. Let him have it.
Right.
Is it uncomfortable? Yeah, but let's be honest. I mean, let's truly be honest. Let's say, for example, me and you are both out there working secular jobs. There's still going to be problems in those secular jobs. We're making great money. We're driving brand new vehicles, big fancy house. There's still going to be problems that come up. You're still going to have anxiety arise. What if this breaks? Do I have the money to afford it? You know, there is not a time in life that we're not going to have issues there, that it's going to be uncomfortable.
Right.
I don't care how good it is. If you're at the top, somebody's always trying to knock you down off the mountain. So it's not like if I can just claw, fight, and battle my way to the top, I can take a breath.
I'm secure. Yeah.
There is no security.
No.
I mean, with everything, the pandemic, the crazy inflation, I mean, nothing is permanent. Nothing is a staple. Nothing is secure.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be that fight. So, I mean, really and truthfully, what are we fighting for? For most of us, I feel like we're fighting, to be wealthy and well off and think that that's going to fix our problems. For others in us, it's, something completely different, trying to, find our purpose, our belonging, or something to that effect.
Right.
And I really feel like the whole battle would be so much easier if we would just, like it says in 2 Chronicles 20, he legit said to his people, chill out. This is not your battle. This is my battle.
Right.
If you will do things the way I told you, I don't care what it looks like. I don't care what it seems like. If you will just let me have it, and you will prepare the way I'm telling you to prepare and do the things I'm telling you to do, it's all going to work out. And what happened? He caused 3 different nations that rose up against this one nation to turn on themselves. They all killed themselves. Nobody was lost from this one side, the side that God was behind. And they spent 3 days picking up jewelry and gold and all this other mess off the ones that were trying to rise up against them. It all worked out.
Right.
Bigger and better than it ever could if they had tried to go out there and do it themselves.
Right.
So, with that in mind, the whole deal was for them to rest in God. Do the things I've asked you to do. The same thing with the walls of Jericho. Same exact situation. They were told to do something a certain way, and they just had to rest and believe and know that God was going to take care of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as humans, we overcomplicate this so much, and I've said it before. I just think we overcomplicate God because we're always like one step ahead, maybe. It's like, okay, well, if I do this, then what's next? And you don't have to know what's next. You just have to take that blind leap of faith and be like, all right, you said in your words, you got me. You've got me.
Right.
This is what I'm doing. This is where we're going. And when those next steps are rocky or they feel rocky to you, you just have to know that you're truly leaning in tune, in touch, taking the time to slow down and truly hear his voice and say, okay, all right, it's rocky, but we're going to be okay. Reevaluate your heart, I think, is a lot of it.
Well, that's exactly what, was being said right there in Philippians. When it says, let your heart be at peace. Mm-hmm. And it says the peace of God. Well, to me, I automatically always, when I ever see that, I'll revert back to the time when Jesus was walking on water and he commanded Peter to step towards him. Yeah. Okay. That kind of peace, he wasn't worried about any other thing going on. He had his eyes directly focused on Jesus. And Jesus said, come here. And he was just fine until he took his eyes off of Jesus, and then he sank. Yeah. And so whenever I see that peace of God, that's what I think of. Because in him is eternal peace, eternal joy. The only time that I have ever not had joy or peace or anything in my life, I was trying to figure it out. As long as I quit trying to figure it out and I just rest in the situation, I'm fine, because there is absolutely nothing I can do about it. Making myself sick and crazy is not going to affect my situation. Yeah. No matter what it is. The whole time in those legal battles, I was, scared to death. But I would find bits and pieces of hope and comfort in him, and that's where I would have to stay. Yeah. There was no room outside of that because it wasn't going to do any good. Well, it was going to be what it was going to be. I knew that I could not persuade anybody one way or another. Right. Anything that had to come from God. And why we turn that off and stray away from that, I really don't know. But we do it all the time. Everybody as humans do. It's like human nature.
Well, those are those times that you truly cling to your faith. Those are those times that he has to be there because there's no other way out.
Right.
And that you're right. Like, why are we not living like that every single day? Because there are certain things we can fix. You can go get a multi-million-dollar job and
Yeah.
buy whatever vehicle or whatever house or whatever clothing you want. You know, you can fix that material, like if you really wanted to.
Absolutely.
So why are we not living in Him through that? Like He's already told you in His Word, He's not going to let you
Right.
perish. You know, I mean, He cares for the bird, so you're above a bird. You know what I mean? So,
Exactly.
but why are we not? Why do we get so off track and off focus? I think it's just because it's not our timing; it's His timing.
Well, I think that's a lot of it, and we just get in the flesh. And with that flesh, you're dealing with all of those emotions. And one of those being anxiety. Anxiety is so powerful because, I think it gets a bad rep because it's kind of become a lean-to for like the drug reps and stuff going out there in these pharmaceuticals because they want to numb it or dial it down. And, it's kind of taken a negative turn, but it's really not. I mean, it's okay to be anxious for Braylee's party that's coming up. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. That's anxiety.
Right.
But we just want to kill everything that we can find as a culture anymore that doesn't fit into the dynamics or the genre or whatever you want to call it that so-and-so said was the end thing. And so in that, we have that anxiety. And so when we get anxious or worrying about it, it's automatically a negative thing.
Yes.
But what we need to look at is, trying to stay outside of that flesh, trying to stay outside of that overcompensation that we get into. Because that's what happens. We get anxious, and so then we try to overcompensate. Right. I kind of give it reference to like football. And it's happened 2 or 3 times this weekend. Guys are fighting for more yardage. And so they put themselves in a vulnerable spot, exposing the football. Somebody comes in and punches it out. And, we were 3rd and 4, but we were trying to get that first down all in the one lick right there. Instead of coming up there and being 4th and inches and having another shot at it, we reached out and ended up losing the football to begin with. It happened a while ago in the Dallas game where we were watching. They were trying to punch it on in the end zone, Detroit was, and he got himself in a vulnerable spot. And what would have been a touchdown to put them ahead, maybe won them the game, ended up costing them the game because we lost the football trying to be more. Right. And I think that's exactly what you're giving reference to, is stop trying to operate out of God. Just rest in Him. Know that He said, like we were talking about the other day, go to point B. Don't worry about the other stuff that comes. If I told you to go there, I'm going to take care of everything that lies along the way. Yeah. A flat tire, whatever. Yes. I got you. But we get anxious and we get to worrying and we try to overdo it. We try to push. And we end up getting ourselves in worse shape than we would have been. Yes. Just taking life as it comes. Right. And that's one reason why we are doing this today, so that we can just, you and me, something we haven't done in 2.5, 3 weeks, is just go be a couple for a day. We have some errands to run that are outside of the ministry. We've got just some light. We just want to go feel human for a day instead of, like a labor force. And it's nothing that we don't enjoy doing, but in the same boat, we need that as people. We need that break. We need that time to just shut our brain off. And folks, some of the greatest things I have ever heard from God on was when I wasn't working for God. It was in those, like, one time I was at the deer lease, and I was up in the stand one morning before the sun came up. And some of the things that took place, God just showed Himself in such a mighty way, and it edified me a little bit to where I could go glorify Him more. Right. But I wasn't even trying to do anything for God that day. It was just me by myself in a deer stand having some me time. And those times are so crucial. They're so important in our life.
Yeah. I don't think you realize how important they are until you don't make them a priority.
Right.
And it's not that we've not meant to make each other a priority, because I mean we have.
Oh, that's every day.
It just hasn't been outside of anything other than work or kids.
Well, we're different.
You know?
We've always said we're different because most people fight when they're together a lot. We normally argue and fuss and fight when we're, pulled apart, operating outside of each other's whatever. And it's not that we're overbearing on one another. It's not that we have to have a finger on one another. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just we are truly best friends and we've had each other's backs through thick and thin. And so we operate better, together. But in that, we do still have some things that we do apart. And I will say, from my point of view, when they happen, they are awkward. Like when I've had to go off on hunting trips or whatever without you, it's awkward. It's weird.
Yeah.
When I used to rodeo and I was away from you and the kids, it was weird. I was like, I don't like this. This is funny, But it's one of those things where we live every day like Valentine's Day, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, we truly do. So, I mean, it is important for us to get away on days like we're going on, because I think it's going to be some well-needed rest for our minds and just time to just back out of the fight for a little bit and just let God in. I don't know.
Sometimes you just get going so much, and we have other stuff going on outside of the ministry too, but
right.
We're both so determined and we're both pretty hard workers, and it's one foot in front of the other and it's constantly like a run. I think sometimes we lose track with him, and I think sometimes we lose track with each other even though we're together.
Yes.
And so sometimes we just have to stop and regroup and come back to, okay, what were we going after? Because both of us are kind of off the path. We have to come back and reprioritize some things and figure out, okay, we missed a step, or we're 10 steps ahead, we need to back up, or maybe in some instances we're still stagnant because we haven't listened, we haven't been hearing, because we haven't taken the time, so we're a few steps behind. And so we just need to get together, regroup, not have 9,000 things on the table to just catch
Absolutely.
up. Even though we're together all the time, I think sometimes we get taken off path and taken off course in different directions.
Well, like we've given reference to before, you're working so hard, your head's down and you're just plowing along, and you look up and you've missed your turn row. You've plowed through the turn row. And for those of you that are listening that don't know what that is, it's the edge of your field where normally you turn the tractor around. Yeah. Think about it in a big square. And your turn row is that outer perimeter of that square, to where you can pick up your plow, turn the tractor around, start your new row down the other direction, and that's what we call a turn row. But you've plowed through it. You didn't stop, regroup to get going again.
Yeah.
And so when we come back, we will wrap this up and give a few more little insights to where we're going with all this when we come back from Raw and Real with TJ and Jen. What?
The quiet.
The quiet? I know, it is
truly.
truly.
For a day or two.
Do what?
It'll mess with me for a day or two.
Yeah, it normally does. I know that one time they came, or they went with your mom, and when they came back, or it was a while before they came back, it was weird. It took me a day to adjust. I had to adjust with them being gone, then I'd adjust with them coming back.
I'm so grateful that they have grandparents that they want to go spend time with, and it's nice for us to have a break, and I'm grateful for that, but it's so awkward.
Yeah. No, it is. It's very awkward. So, well, we are back with the Raw and Real podcast, and it's been an unplanned episode. I was actually thinking about waiting until tomorrow morning, or even tomorrow night, to do it so I could kind of get my brain wrapped around something, and this just came up, and I knew that it was God. And I think that's when it hit me the hardest, because I'm like, you asked me, when I wanted to sit down to film and do this, and I was like, I don't know, like my brain's been turned off.
Right.
My brain's off, I don't know, like I don't even have anything. And so we just legit went off onto a topic, me and you, and I was like, that's it. And it dawned on me, like, we were resting for a minute. We were just venting, brain dumping, as you like to call it. Like, we were just taking that second to just get away from it all. And it hit. And then I knew, and I was like, we need to go share that, because I wonder how many more out there are dealing with the same problem and maybe struggling, trying to find or hear or whatever. And I'm like, anytime, I've always said this, I'm not really ministering to anybody, but if it helps me, I'm going to share it.
Absolutely.
And that's the way I've always approached anytime I've ever been, as a guest speaker or whatever. I don't have set sermons that I go by that I used 10 years ago that 100 people were saved. I don't have that. I sit down and I'm like, God, what do you need for your people that I'm going, to visit with? What do you have for them?
People don't need that. People need real life, real problems. Like, it's not a fairy tale just because you gave your life to God. It's not a fairy tale. People need that. People need that raw. That's what I needed. I didn't need somebody to walk up and be like, I'm blessed and highly favored.
Which we got all the time.
That's great. That's great. I am too.
Right.
I get it. But you know what? Today sucks.
Yeah, today's hard.
And this week has sucked. Like, let's be real. Like, be real with me. Life is not always butterflies and roses.
Right.
Like, that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves. Like, don't tell me you're blessed and highly favored. I am blessed and highly favored. I get that. But today sucks.
Well, a lot of that stemmed from confession. There was a big thing going around for a while about the power of confession. I get it. You can't even be born again without confessing it. I know how much confession dictates a lot of stuff. And I'm not saying that those that have ever preached those sermons are wrong. But I mean, let's face it. You can sit there in the middle of the ocean and say you're okay, and you're not going to get eaten by sharks. But when a shark comes swimming up by you and is circling and looking to take you out, as soon as you get tired of trying to tread water, your confession is really going to be tested. And it's not going to stop it from happening.
That moment is still going
It's still going to suck. So I'm not saying that God won't intervene and save you. That's not, don't misrepresent what I'm trying to say. But the problem is, people think that if we don't confess it, it won't happen. And that's not true. Because you can stand in the gap. You can pray against something. But it does not mean that time is not going to be difficult.
Yes.
He's already said we're going to have trials, we're going to have tribulations. James 1. Count it all joy when you fall into what? Diverse temptations.
Yeah.
Why else would it say that the trying of your faith builds patience, and that when all that's through, you will lack nothing?
Yeah.
Because once patient has had her perfect work, you will be complete, lacking nothing. We're going to go through hardships.
Yes.
You can wake up every day and confess that you're not going to have to jump a hurdle. But some point in that day, you're going to face some kind of hurdle.
Right.
Period. It's called life. He already knew that we were up against it. So the only true weapon that we have is resting in Him and how to handle it.
Right.
So we have to learn how to retrain our brain. It's the very thing that Paul, I believe it's Romans, I don't know why this just came to me, but I'm going to jump over in there right quick. But I believe it's in Romans. let me see. Yeah, it says right here, Romans 12:2. I thought it was. I just wanted to make sure. Romans 12:2. It says, and be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. We have to continually work on retraining our brain. We have to constantly work on teaching ourselves day in and day out how to rest in God.
Right.
We need to practice that ask, seek, knock, where we're praying for it. We're praying on it. We're believing God for it. And then we begin that seeking phase. I give it in context to like you're hunting for work. There's a time where you're praying for God, you're looking in the newspaper, and then you find something that jumps out at you. That's that seeking. And then you fill out your application or your resume and you go and you present it. There's that knocking time that comes. And it's kind of that same principle in life. We have to take those steps. It's in the Bible for a reason. I share this all the time. Bible. Basic instructions before leaving earth. It's a guidebook. It's stories and guides for us to be and operate. And there's a reason that stuff is in there for us to follow. There's a reason that Jesus went and John and said, I'm going to, have my Father send you the Holy Spirit so that you can finish out the remainder of this ministry that I'm leaving y'all with until I return, to operate and do the very best of your ability.
Right.
And so that Holy Spirit is what we call upon when we're asking for that peace, because it is the very God that we believe in living in us and through us, and we have to rely on that. We have to depend on that and rest in Him and know, all right, we've been praying for this. I haven't seen anything, but God, by faith, which is the evidence of that which we hope. It's the stuff we're hoping for. That's right. What faith is. We're believing in it. By faith, you're gonna show up when everything is right and the way it's supposed to be.
Right. Well, and I think you have to be prepared for when He does show up.
Yeah.
You can pray and pray and pray all these things, and then when He shows up, you're like caught off guard.
Yes.
Why are you caught off guard? You've been asking, you've been praying, so prepare yourself for Him to show up. So when He does, you can be like, thank you. Like, I get it, you have to prepare yourself for your harvest.
You have to. We always talk about around here, preparing your field. Prepare your field. But, when you plant cotton, don't be shocked that cotton comes up.
Right. Yeah.
Rejoice in that. Thank Him. And even when things don't look like they're supposed to, according to your brain or the critics or whatever, it doesn't matter. If God said it, He will perform it. Rest in Him.
That's right.
Rest in Him.
Just because yours isn't breaking ground when your neighbor's is, doesn't mean you're behind.
That's right.
It just means yours is coming. And it will come.
And it will be perfect, lacking nothing.
That's right. And it'll probably be twice as big as His.
Everything's a competition around here, folks. I'm just telling you right now, we compete on everything. I don't care what it is. It's always been a thing. We are the two of the most competitive people. And really and truthfully, our kids only got a portion of it. Because
we haven't given it.
I guess they're just not as competitive as we are. Maybe when we're rested at home with God permanently, they can have a shot. But they got to get up pretty early and work twice as hard to beat us, because we are competitive.
Yeah.
Well, we want to thank y'all so much again for, helping share the word. And we're out there on Anchor and Spotify, and we're even up in Canada, like I was sharing the other day. It's just humbling, and we are truly grateful on the blogs too. We want to thank all of y'all for helping us spread the word, and we always want to extend the invitation. It's oh my gosh, we've given the links and we'll continue to do so. Reach out, send in stuff that you have questions. If you have questions or something, even if we don't know it, we'll get in God's word and we'll do some digging and we'll go from some personal experience and we'll try to, chime in and we really want to interact with you guys. And
yeah, if there's something you want covered, if you want talked about that nobody's talking about,
absolutely, we're pretty open door. I mean, it's going to get raw and it's going to get real.
Yeah.
I mean, so you could reach us on our social media platforms, Quint Team Ministries. You can email us at quintteamministries@gmail.com. We got the website up, and that link, it's not the best link. We haven't gotten all into that fully yet, but we'll give the link to click on. It has a place down at the bottom on the homepage where you can fill out and submit.
Yeah, you can subscribe
and
reach us.
Yeah, it has comments and contact info and all that where you can get a hold of us. So we'd love to hear from you. Reach out to us. Let us know kind of what's going on in y'all's walk, in y'all's life. We look forward to hearing from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, I guess until Thursday, unless something else happens,
Who knows?
we will get back to being raw and real with TJ and Jen.
All right.
Bye guys.